Good morning and greetings in the name of Jesus Christ. Wow. The sun was so bright coming in the window, I had to turn sideways just so you could see something. So, if anyone's been paying attention or been watching what's been going on around the world, um, the Israeli elections are going on right now, right this minute. I'm going to read you a couple of the articles that have been put out so far, just to touch on what's going on. I'm in Haaretz right now, which is Haaretz, if you want to go look that up yourself. Live updates, Israel election 2019, Arab turnout at historic low. Netanyahu defends hidden cameras in Arab polling stations. Netanyahu's party places 1,200 hidden cameras in Arab polling sites. Gantz helps injured motorcyclist, election exit polls at 10 p.m., 6.3 million people eligible to vote. Polls open nationwide Tuesday morning at Israel's 2019 Knesset election is underway in what is widely seen as a race between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Kahol Lavan leader Benny Gantz. As the party scrambled to rally last-minute voters, the final poll before the election, which will be published Friday, gave the right-wing bloc a solid lead over the center-left, headed by Kahol Lavan. 10,000 polling stations are open across Israel with some 6.3 million eligible voters. Hundreds of thousands are expected to swarm the beaches, malls, and amusement parks on Election Day, a national holiday in Israel. Now, remember, their original elections were in November like ours are. They were going to be this November. They moved them up. And I mentioned that in a far back previous video. They moved them up, and there's a reason why they moved them up. And it's because of Bible prophecy. I've told you before, Netanyahu, Trump, Pompeo, Pence, those guys, and there's a few others too, they all know that they're fulfilling Bible prophecy. They've openly admitted they're fulfilling Bible prophecy. They know what their role is. They know what's been given to them by God as a task to perform. And that's the reason why they moved that election up, because there were certain things that had to take place, and it was good for them to move it up there to April, because they could see they're privy to information we're not privy to, and they're being told things we're not being told, and a lot of things are being shared with them. Pompeo came out last week, and he said, yeah, we're ushering in the rapture. They know that they're doing this. And that was it on that one. All right, let me go to another one. Let's see, we got CNN. So here's one. This is from Haaretz. It's 2 hours old. Netanyahu versus Gantz 2019. 6 scenarios for how the Israeli election will play out. Whoa, I didn't realize this. Whatever happens on Tuesday's election, Gantz and Netanyahu might be secretly planning for a national unity government. The opinion polls, like the Israeli public, are split right down the middle. Half the surveys conducted last week before Friday's cutoff put Benny Gantz, Kahol Lavan, slightly in the lead. The other half had Likud with a similar size advantage. It's a dead heat between the two largest parties. But on one thing, the polls were in consensus. The bloc of right-wing and religious parties had a small majority over the center-left opposition. Small, but not that steady, as it's a majority based on 7 parties that are all pretty close to the 3.25% electoral threshold. So nothing is certain, and the polls are questionable anyway. The following are the 6 likeliest scenarios for the results that we'll start hearing as the polls close at 10 p.m. Tuesday night, which is, I forget what time it's going to be now. I think it's going to be in about 2 more hours. Something like that. 2 or 3 more hours. If Likud and Kahol Lavan receive more or less the same number of seats, but the right-wing and religious parties have a small majority, we can expect both Benjamin Netanyahu and Gantz to proclaim victory in the wee hours Wednesday. But it will be Bibi who has the chance to form a coalition. It won't necessarily be easy, because it will mean Netanyahu needs to make a separate deal with each of the 7 other parties of his coalition, each of which can bring down his government and hold him to ransom at any point. This is when Netanyahu will start to think he may be better off building a grand coalition with Gantz instead. If Netanyahu's Gewalt campaign works, the right-wing voters believe he's in danger and move from a smaller party like Likud. Netanyahu is in the best situation from his perspective. A larger Likud, the biggest party in the Knesset, with a sizable margin over Kahol Lavan, and a choice of minnows with which to form a coalition. And they won't have the power to bring down. They won't have the power to bring him down unless they act together. This is what he has been trying to create with his panic attack in the last 4 days. But what if the Gewalt is too successful and the surge of right-wingers to Likud becomes a tidal wave? If too many right-wing voters abandon the smaller parties they were planning to vote for and go over to Likud, Netanyahu will be the leader of the largest party in the Knesset. But he may not have a coalition. The number of small parties that are pushed beneath the electoral threshold could change the balance between the blocs. Excuse me. Washington Post, Wikipedia. I'm trying to find it from the Jerusalem Post. Here we go. Whoops. Let's go look at the Jerusalem Post and see what they've got to say. Here we go. Netanyahu warns Likud will lose election, left will take over Israel. Netanyahu urged everyone at home and at the beach to vote for the Likud using the slip that reads Mahal, which represents Netanyahu's party. Warning of the rise of the left, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu canceled a planned campaign event in Ashdod on Tuesday and returned to Jerusalem, where he said he was going to work to save the right and ensure that a right-wing government comes to power following the elections. I received a dramatic update that there is low turnout for Likud strongholds, but that there is high turnout in left-wing strongholds, Netanyahu said. We have to save the right. There are only a few more hours. So they're in the balance right now as to who's going to get in power. It is unclear if Netanyahu's warning is genuine or is part of his week-long campaign to get people to fear that he will lose in order to increase voter turnout among right-wing voters. It is referred to in Israel as the Gewalt campaign, a Yiddish expression of alarm. Earlier in the day, Netanyahu went to the Netanya beach and warned people there that if they do not vote, Likud will lose. Netanyahu did not don his swimming suit and join the thousands who flocked the beaches of Israel, but rather came to meet them. I am here at the beach, and there are a lot of people here, Netanyahu said. But if they stay at the beach and not go and vote, they will wake up tomorrow with Yair Lapid heading a left-wing government. And they don't want to do that because the left-wing government is going to divide Israel for sure, and they're going to make a Palestinian state, and there won't be a peace deal. They'll actually end up probably go straight into war. Netanyahu urged everyone at home and at the beach to vote for the Likud using the slips that reads Mahal, which represents Netanyahu's party. The prime minister also claimed that supporters of the blue and white mark the Mahal slips from behind, which makes the slip not count. Netanyahu then told the voters to look at the slips carefully before voting. So the same thing we had in our elections here is the same thing they're having over there. There's people trying to deny votes for those voting for the right wing, and they're trying to promote votes those voting for the left wing. So the same cheating, it's worldwide, the same cheating is happening. In 2015, Netanyahu launched his Gewalt in the final days of the campaign and stirred controversy when, on election day, he warned that Arabs were coming out in droves to vote. Even though he later apologized for the racist remark, it had the desired effect. Netanyahu pulled ahead of the Zionist Union and won the election. That's all they got on that article. So, see if I can find something. Well, they're calling for a political catastrophe because the Arab turnout is so low. And it makes you wonder, with as much as been that's been going on, and as much fight as there's been over the Temple Mount, over Jerusalem, over the Palestinian state, you would think the Arabs would be heavily trying to get in there. So we don't know what's going on. We don't know where, if there's an agenda behind the scenes that we're not catching on to, or if there's something going on where they're being blocked. Our Arab MKs have failed us, Arab Israelis say. Fearing low turnout, leaders of the two Arab parties running in the Knesset election on Tuesday appealed to Arab voters to head to their ballot boxes on the pretext that their abstention would strengthen right-wing parties and candidates. By 3 o'clock, only 20% of Arab voters had cast their ballots. They're going to wait to the last minute to go vote, just like what happened here when Trump got elected. Prompting Arab candidates and leaders of the Arab Israelis to make urgent appeals to their constituents to take part in the electoral process. The two Arab parties running in the election are Hadash Ta'al and the United Arab List Balad. In the last election, they ran together as the Joint List. Public opinion polls published in recent weeks showed that Hadash Ta'al, headed by MKs Ayman Odeh and Ahmed Tibi, would get 6 or 7 seats, while the United Arab List Balad would receive 4 to 5 seats in the Knesset. The split in this joint list, which led to establishment of the two parties, drew sharp criticism from many Arab Israelis, with some calling for boycotting the election. Going to see a recount. They're going to start crying for a recount. Several online campaigns launched by Arab activists have urged voters to punish their MKs by staying at home. They further argued that since there was no chance that Arabs would be part of any government coalition, there was no reason why Arabs should participate in the election. Do we not have the same thing here? People say, well, we're not going to win, so why bother voting? It's important. It's important to get out there and have your vote heard, whether there's a bunch of shenanigans going on or not. They don't want us in the opposition, and they don't want us in the coalition, was the message of the advocates of the boycott. Opponents of the campaign warned that an Arab boycott would play into the hands of Likud and other right-wing parties. Arab voters don't have many options, said Khaled Khalifa, a journalist and political analyst. Therefore, we need to wake up and try to get as many Arab members in the Knesset as possible to counter the fascists who are calling for the expulsion of the Arabs. Another political analyst, Maroun Azam, warned that Arab boycott of the election would be a political catastrophe. He also warned that a boycott would increase anti-Arab incitement in Israel society. Do you kind of see what's going on here? Maybe they're trying to take power away from the Arabs as far as voting or opinion, so they can maybe go in there and take the Temple Mount. Possible. Talal al-Kranawi, the mayor of the Bedouin town of Rahat in the Negev, who is part of the Tal list, headed by Tibi, urged Arab voters to ignore calls for boycotting the vote. This is exactly what the right-wing parties and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu want, he said. We appeal to all the Arabs to head to the ballot box to give their response to Netanyahu and his right-wing allies. Our goal is to defeat the right-wing parties and extremists. We want an end to Netanyahu's government. I want to ask you guys a question. If you've been paying attention and looking in past history, what's been going on with the last probably 3 leaders, including Netanyahu? What's happened when Netanyahu was in and when these other leaders were in? Say the last 4 leaders, because Netanyahu held the position 2 times. What's going on? Under those other leaders, Israel fell apart. Israel was divided. Israel was given away. Power was given away. Under Netanyahu, Israel's gotten stronger. Things have gotten better for them over there. Their tourism is off the charts, and because of him being in power, they're now the 4th strongest nation in the world and 8th on the stock exchange. That's amazing for a little tiny country like that. That's only 70 miles across. Well, further now that they got Jordan and Golan Heights. The mayor of the village of Ara in the Triangle area said that while he understood the reasons why many Arabs were calling for boycotting the election, it would be harmful for the Arab citizens of Israel if they did not take part in the vote. I can understand that Arab voters are disillusioned with their Knesset members, especially after the split in the joint list, he said. But it would be a grave mistake to boycott the election because Zionist parties are not going to look after the interests of our people. So you can see that even though Netanyahu was hardcore against uh, giving up Israel or certain things that the Arab parties wanted, he was always for helping them and giving them um, space for their opinion, for their vote, for their what their ideas they had for Israel. Because a lot of people were like, "Well, they're not going to give them a Palestinian state. They don't want nothing to do with them." That's wrong. He actually said, "We'll give you open citizenship to Israel. You don't have to have a state for yourself. We'll give you citizenship here, and you can live here." But they didn't want that. That wasn't good enough for them. They want control of the land. And the last time they had the control of the land, they destroyed it, and Israel had to rebuild everything when they ran them out. In Al-Fam, also in the Triangle, residents seem to be divided more than ever over the issue of boycotting the election. Ahmed Mohammed, a 26-year-old university student, said that he and many of his friends were very upset with the Arab MKs. What have they done for us, he asked. Some of them do more for the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza Strip than for their own people here. That's why I decided to punish them by staying at home. A very similar thing happened in our elections. In Ohio and Iowa, two classically Democratic states, the Democratic parties that were running canceled all of their rallies there. These people went out of their way and went through a lot of effort to set up these huge rallies. And Clinton and I forget the other guy was running. They didn't go. They canceled all their rallies and didn't go. And the people, there's actually video interview of the people. They were like, the campaign runners, they were like, well, we set all this up for them. They didn't even bother to come here. Maybe we need to vote for the other guy. And they did. Trump won both those states. So this is a situation where you've got parties focusing on the wrong voting group, trying to win them over instead of working with their own people who would have actually helped them out by having their own people out there voting for them. Now they're having to deal with this. So this could end bad for them. I lost my spot. It moved. Uh, oh, yeah, y'all need to hear this. Um, Samira Mahajne, a 34-year-old pharmacist, said she too wasn't voting this time because she doesn't feel that the Arab MKs have done much for the Arab Israelis. The Arab Knesset members care only about themselves, she said. I'm not going to vote this time, and I don't care if this means strengthening Netanyahu and the Likud. Political activist Ahmed Khalifa of Al-Fam said he was opposed to Arab participation in the election for ideological reasons. The Arab presence in the Knesset has no influence, he said. By running in the election, we are helping Netanyahu's propaganda machine that claims that Israel is the only democracy. Excuse me for a minute. They always know when I'm awake. The Arab presence in the Knesset has no influence, he said. By running in the election, we are helping Netanyahu's propaganda machine that claims that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East because Arabs are sitting in the Knesset. The Arab parties will never be invited to join any coalition, so what's the point of sending our representatives to the Knesset? In the city of Tyre, in the Southern Triangle area, residents reacted with mixed feelings to the election. Many said they were worried by the increased anti-Arab incitement in the country, especially during the election campaign. We see no difference between Netanyahu and blue and white party head Benny Gantz, said Ayman Abdel Haya, a 48-year-old accountant. They both incited against the Arabs during their election campaigns and said they would not invite Arabs to be part of any coalition. I never saw such racism in an election campaign. It's actually not about race. It has nothing to do with race. It has to do with that's Israeli land. They're finding evidence of it all the time, and the Arabs have no claim to it, and this is what they're fighting against. It has nothing to do with them being Arabs. He and several other residents said that they have also lost faith in the Arab parties. The right in Israel is inciting against us and delegitimizing us, while our representatives in the Knesset are busy fighting each other. Abdel Hayat added, I believe many residents here are going to vote for Meretz this time because they seem to be the only party that speaks out against racism and fascism. In East Jerusalem, many Arab residents said they had no interest in the election. There's no difference between Netanyahu and Gantz, said East Jerusalem shopkeeper Khalad Salema. The Zionist parties may disagree on everything, but when it comes to the Arabs, they are all united in their hatred for us. The vast majority of the East Jerusalem residents do not vote in the election because they are not Israeli citizens. As permanent residents of Jerusalem, they hold Israeli ID cards that allow them to cast their ballots in municipal elections. However, the majority of the Arab residents of the city have been boycotting the municipal elections since 1968 for political reasons. And they wonder why they don't win. It's because they're since 68. You know what happened in 68? It was the 6-Day War when they took back Jerusalem. But they wonder why they're not, getting any headways because they're not out there doing something about it. I'm not supporting them. I'm supporting Israel. That's their land. It's always been their land. But there are thousands of Arab Israeli families who moved to Jerusalem from different parts of the country in the past 51 years. It was not clear on Tuesday how many Arab Israelis living in East Jerusalem had voted in the election. 2 Arab Israelis from the Beit Hanina neighborhood in northern Jerusalem said they were opposed to the calls for boycotting the election. The Arab citizens are facing huge and serious challenges, one of them said. I'm very worried because of the nation-state law, which turns us into second-class citizens. Boycotting the election would be a big mistake because we need representatives in the Knesset to fight for our rights and try to change this law. I agree with this. While I don't believe that they have any claim to that land, if they're living in that land, they need to support whatever party that they have, based on what that party is going to do for the whole, not just individuals. We had the same problem here. We had people voting because they were voting for what this candidate is going to do for me, not what this candidate is going to do for the country. But a bunch of us rose up, we stepped out, we voted for Trump, and we got somebody in here who cares about our country, not just an individual want or need. Are we all winning on all counts? No, but overall, the whole country is better because of how we voted. These guys here are giving up their opportunity to vote and giving up their opportunity to change things. Disclaimer, while I don't support their agenda, while I don't support their claim that that's their land, I support that I 100% support that's Israel's land, always has been their land. The problem is that they're giving up their opportunities, and they've been doing it since 68, to get in there and vote and get the people they want in that election. And because they give up so easily is because they lose. So they have no room to complain. You've created these situations because you guys haven't gotten involved. And I don't live over there. I don't understand what they're going through, what they're dealing with, how they're doing things. But the only way you make change in your country or in your government or in your local government is you got to get involved. And that requires getting out there. When New York passed that abortion law, immediately that night when I found out about it, I jumped on here and I started sounding the alarm. It took 3 weeks for anybody to really step up and say, wow, what the heck happened? And get involved. It took almost a whole month for it to achieve, a big nationwide status that something was wrong. And immediately I emailed my state governor, 2 state representatives, and I said, this cannot be allowed to happen. I told everybody I knew, you guys need to email them and let them know how you feel about this. As far as I know, today, Texas, nobody has submitted the new abortion law legislation into the Texas government. They've squashed it every time it comes out. Yet I know of over 26 states that have already pushed it through. Now, some states are passing laws against it. Thank God they're opening their eyes to what this is. And they're realizing this is not good. But if you don't step up and you don't, speak out of what you're against and fight for your rights and what you believe in and what your party and for your group, your race, your people, if you're not stepping up and sounding off about this kind of stuff, then you're going to have issues like this where nobody's going to speak for you because you're not talking to them and saying, this is what we'd like for you to do as our representative. And consequently, what's happened is that their own people, their own parties are giving up on them. And they're trying to fight for their own agenda. And because they haven't heard from the people, now they're fighting this. Your voice stops these people. Your voice restrains them from doing dumb things, furthering their agenda instead of what's good for all of you. And I said restrainer for a reason. And if you guys, all y'all who are paying attention, know what I'm talking about. But we, the people, are restraining these other people from just doing whatever they want to do by us voting, by us emailing them, calling them, talking to them, telling them what we want, taking people out and putting people in power that will work for us. We are the reason why this happens. They're in government because we put them there. Why would you sit on your hands and not get involved in this vote? Uh, I mean, without trying to sound weird, I challenge all the Arabs over there: stand up and go vote. Don't spend your time sitting on your hands. If you want change, you need to go out and make change. You can't just expect somebody to step up and go, I got you guys, don't worry about it, I'm going to make the change. There's only one person that does that for us. That's Jesus Christ. No one else will step up and go, I got you, don't worry, I got this covered, I'll take care of everything. No man on this, no woman on this earth is ever going to do that. Jesus Christ is the only one that's done that for us. So when it comes to these governments like that, you guys need to be in prayer, and you guys need to go and you need to act on what you want changed. Now, while I don't support the Arab view, however, I do think if they're living there and they're citizens of Israel, they need to get involved. They need to step up so they do have rights and they do have a vote and a say in how things go over there. But Netanyahu's going to win because by default because these people won't step up, and then all they're going to do is they're going to complain about it. Well, you let it happen. You allowed it to happen. You've got to be vocal. You've got to, back in just 60 years ago, people were heavily involved in who got voted in, what the parties were about, what are you going to do for the nation, what are you going to do for our municipality, what you're going to do for our state. That people were very involved in who they voted for, and it was extremely important that everybody voted. And back then, 60 years ago, if you didn't vote, your neighbors would come to your house and say, hey, why haven't you voted? What's the deal? We need to step out for this. And over those 60 years up to now, people have sat back and just let things happen. That's why we ended up with Obama. That man was not qualified for that job. That man had zero international experience or understanding. That's why he made a fool of himself and a fool of us in other countries when he went over there. The man, he's a good speaker, and that's about it. But even then, if you're thinking and you're paying attention, he's not that good of a speaker, because he doesn't talk about things that matter to people. He talks about things that matter to a person, because that's how he's oriented and that's how he thinks and believes. He passed laws based on what he thought was cool. That's why they've got these massive stacks of paper in the White House. God, it's a small room worth of paper. Forget what the number is on executive orders that he just sat there and signed all day long for stupid things. And so, like one of them was like a cat, giving a cat the ability to be a citizen of the United States. What's wrong with you people? So Trump had to go in there and rescind all that stuff, and massive stacks of paper. It's silly, but because we sat on our hands, that's what we were given. And after that second term, when everything tore apart, all the race issues were going on, riots, cops getting killed, innocent citizens getting killed. What a lot of people didn't see on the news was a lot of their own people were getting killed in the crossfire, and they didn't care. They were destroying their own neighborhoods for no reason, all because this person got them excited. What happened? We got up off our hands, we stood up, and we spoke, and we changed it. Now everything's gone back the other direction. We've reversed 8 years in 2.5 years, and it's pretty amazing to see that happen. So your vote is important. Whether it's in our country, whether it's in another, if you're in another country, your vote is important. Whether you win or lose, your vote is still important because you're making yourself heard. And that's how that process is supposed to work. Well, are you going to run into opposition? Are you going to run into issues? Absolutely. Every country does it. Are you going to run into where most people are going to go the other way? Are you going to run into where your neighbors are going to find out and come after you and give you a bunch of grief? Yeah. But is it worth it to not stand up or stand up for what's wrong? Or is it worth it to stand up for what's right? Because when you stand up for what's right, there's one person that is in your corner that you're impressing, and that's our Holy Father. That's Jesus Christ. Because you're standing up for what the right thing is instead of what other people want you to stand up for, or what the general consensus is. Because wrong is wrong. Call it what it is. I really hope these people wake up in these last couple hours that are left. I hope they realize, our vote is important. We need to get out there and step up. But if they don't, Netanyahu's going to win, hands down. I vote for Netanyahu. I can't vote for them, but I'm backing him. He's been the best thing that Israel's ever had, and he needs to stay in power and keep going the way things are because I believe God's going to make that happen. There's a reason why he's in power, and it's like I said at the beginning of the video. They all know that they're fulfilling Bible prophecy. So as long as he's in power, that Bible prophecy will keep being fulfilled. Now, at some point, he'll be taken out of power. And that'll be because of everything being changed, the restrainer being taken away. So we're not going to be here to keep these people from doing these things. But keep your eyes on this, guys. If you have time to go on there and you can go on JerusalemPost.com. You can look at the stuff there. You can go on Haaretz, and you can look at what's going on there and keep track of what's happening. But we're in a short time frame right now between with just this beginning of this last month out to May 14th. We have this short time period here where a lot of things are going to be changing. Players in the game are being moved to different positions. Power is being switched back and forth. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that people don't know about yet, things that are happening. And it's all part of the lead up to the beginning of the 7-year tribulation. And ultimately, at the end of that will be our Lord's triumphant return to take his kingdom back. We're awake to this. We know what's happening. We see what's going on in the world stage. Keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes peeled, because we could see the return of our Lord extremely soon. Like, extremely, extremely soon. Like, you may not make that vacation you're taking this summer. It's soon. But I'm not setting a date. I'm just saying it. Just what I see, what's going on out there. It looks very close. How it could be any further than May or June, I have no idea. It's amazing to me how quick these things are unloading. So I love you guys. When I find out something about what's going on, I'll make another video and jump on here and show you guys or tell you guys what happened. If I can find a video showing it, I'll attach it. Now that I got my editing program, I'll attach it to it so you can see for yourself. Stay informed. Stay on top of this. Keep your eyes open. A lot of things are going to change, especially if Netanyahu wins. That could kick something off over there, because a lot of people don't want him in office, and they're fighting to keep him out of office. So you could all of a sudden see something change really quick after he gets voted in, if he gets voted in. So be blessed in Jesus' name, and I will definitely see you guys in the next video.